right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the STARR Coalition's Let's Talk About It podcast. And I just want to introduce our host today, Leslie Franceschi. I am the Special Projects Chair and Stop the Stigma Champion creator with the STARR Coalition. And my co-host is Sara Swanson with the Minds Ahead program. And she is working with WCG, but as a volunteer with the STARR Coalition as well. And I'd like to introduce our guest panel today. We have Megan Beck. She is our 2023 Stop the Stigma Champion from Westminster, Maryland. And she will be starting her sophomore year at Salisbury University studying nursing in Salisbury, Maryland. I'd also like to introduce her mother, Stacey Beck. And she is a mom, of course, and a mental health advocate. And then we have Maximilian Delgado, the 2024 Stop the Stigma Champion from Rogers, Arkansas. And he's actually going to be starting his first year at university, but as a junior at the University of Arkansas studying psychology. And then we have Jorge Delgado, Max's father, also, dad, and mental health advocate. So welcome, everybody. It's really great to have you here today. I just want to introduce for our listeners, this is our first podcast for Let's Talk About It. And we are going to be today discussing the Stop the Stigma Champion Award, its winners from 2023 and 2024 and their impact to their community. We're going to ask questions like, how did Megan and Max achieve this honor? What has changed for Megan in the last year since she first started attending university? What is Max anticipating in his first year of university? And what is the impact both are making in mental health advocacy and their personal journeys and evolutions? So we'll be digging into that and additionally diving into how their parents, both Stacey and Jorge, their involvement in supporting their children on their path to becoming, amazing young adults. And also, we wanted to discuss how we can utilize both Megan and Max's stories to inspire youth in advocacy, mental health careers, and generally, to be good humans in their local communities, not only from where they grew up, but later in life and transitioning into adulthood. So just to give everybody a little bit of background, and Sara, I'll have you jump in a little bit to talk about the Minds Ahead program, but we do want to note that the STARR Coalition focuses on or their focus is on expertise in mental health research and advocacy. So we started about 10 years ago, and we're working to educate advocates and nonprofits that serve individuals living with mental illness, that clinical research is a viable and trustworthy option for care. And more recently, we've decided to devote a significant amount of time to our youth. And so we created the Stop the Stigma Champion Award in 2023, and it's dedicated to a high school student that has demonstrated exceptional courage and leadership by openly discussing mental health issues, challenging stereotypes, and promoting a supportive and understanding environment in their community. So with that being said, I want to turn it over just to Sara, for Sara to talk about the Minds Ahead program and, what she's doing with that venture.
Yeah, so thanks so much, Leslie, first of all, for organizing this. I did have the pleasure of meeting Max and Jorge when we did present the 2024 Stop the Stigma Champion Award. But Megan, it would be so great to hear more about your story. And I did read a little bit about you on the STARR website, and I just really relate to your story a lot. But I do, want to hear it from you. And I think both you and Max are so brave for doing this, especially, going through high school and then being in your early stages of going into college, I just think it's so amazing and brave how young you are, both of you are, and you really have a voice in your community. And that's just so great because that's what the culture around mental health and stopping the stigma. That's really what we need, and to also educate the youth and continue working with youth in your community to get the word out about mental health and the impacts that mental illness can have on your life. So I just think both of you are so brave, so thank you. And Leslie, thank you for bringing us together. So anyways, yeah, in the spring of 2024, the Minds Ahead program was dedicated to partnering with and connecting youth to leading subject matter experts in various advocacy initiatives with the intention of improving access to quality mental health services. We want to ensure the most accurate and up-to-date resources are provided. So connecting with high schools, and mainly high schools and colleges, young adults who are, thinking about the next steps in their career, if they do want to, continue professional education, and then get into the professional world, just getting the word out about clinical research, and careers in clinical research, as well as careers in the mental health field. But yeah, I think that's all I want to say for now. I'd love to, hear more from Megan and Max. So.
Great. So let's move on to our panel discussion. And Megan, first question is for you. Do you want to give us a little bit of background about your mental health advocacy journey, and really starting from your high school experience, and how did you win this award to begin with, and talk a little bit about that?
So I started, I think my senior year, I made a Facebook post just about like my journey, my struggles. Not, I didn't want to I was so afraid of being judged about how I felt, and just how, because looking at someone who has depression, you don't know. Okay, no one knew that I was depressed. No one knew anything. And I just was so scared that I was going to be judged by family, friends, people that I went to school with. But I just made my post to tell people that you're not alone in how you feel, and that having your feelings is completely valid, and that you just should not be ashamed for how you feel. And it was very scary for me to make that post because, again, I didn't want to get judged. But after making the post, so many people have reached out to me and my mom, just asking, who did you see? Who did you go talk to? Therapist wise, I guess. And it's made me just feel why did I ever think that I was going to get judged? Why did I ever feel ashamed for how I felt? Because, making my post just touched so many people. And I'm looking back, I'm just so glad that I made that post.
So what made you think, though, based on maybe things that were happening in high school in your community, that you would be judged? Or there
just because it's not really accepted, I guess, your mental health, and everyone just thinks you should just be happy all the time. Because looking at me, I have it all. I have a family, I go to school, I have a nice house, I have it all, but I just wasn't happy,
right.
wasn't doing okay. And so I just I was just so afraid that I would just get judged, because looking in, I have the perfect life.
And were you surprised about the particular people that were reaching out to you?
Yes, I was.
And
Because
were you surprised in the same way that they were depressed or
yes, I
had other
was.
issues?
Just everyone who reached out, to either me or my mom, I would never have known that they felt that way, that they had the same thoughts that I did. I would never have guessed that in a million years, that they, you know, you could see them being so happy and then they feel the same way that I did. And it just goes to show that you really never know
You never
what.
know. And what were the kinds of things then, action, right? So you were approached, help me talk about this. What were your actions in helping them? You kind of had an open door policy once
Yeah.
you wrote that, right?
Yeah.
So what kinds of advice did you have for them? What kinds of struggles were they dealing with, if you can talk about that?
I just told them to reach out. I told them to talk to their parents just like I did. I told my mom like a random Sunday night that I just wasn't happy anymore, that I just was very, I was just struggling a lot. And, the next day she reached out and, called therapists and got me the help that I needed. And so I told them to do the same thing. I was like, if you feel comfortable telling your parents, then you need to do that, because or you can reach out to someone, reach out to a therapist and get help, because it helped me so much. And like having those thoughts that I did like those years ago, I do not have those thoughts anymore because I reached out and I got the help that I needed.
Good. That's excellent. And Stacey, we've known each other since our girls were little, not anymore. And I just, like, of course we've seen the strong family unit that you have, right? And it just, in some ways, when I saw that post, it was like, whoa, this is, excuse me, it's very touching. This is our community.
Yep.
So
Leslie?
I don't have any tissues, so
sorry. How has this impacted your journey as a parent?
Um,
I actually have some of my next
I- oh, it's made my parenting, I think, it made our relationship, I think, that much stronger. We've always had a very strong relationship, and I always have had an open door policy with both my daughters. I also have a 15-year-old daughter who's starting her sophomore year of high school. I've always been an open book with my children, told them they can come to me for anything. And I think that open relationship really paid off, especially in this situation. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some things they tell me that I'm not sure I want to know. This was not one of them. This was definitely something that, while I was taken aback, because like Megan said, looking at us from the outside, her parent, both of her father and I are still married. We've been married for 23 years, and we have a house and 3 cars, and Tim and I both have stable jobs, and we have 2 girls and a dog, and the white picket fence, the whole thing. We look like the all-American family from the outside, and yet no one knows the struggles that people have internally. So when Megan came to me and voiced those feelings she was having, my immediate thought was, I burst into tears and I hugged her and I said, we're going to figure this out. And it was like she said, it was a random Sunday night, late at night. And the first thing I did the next morning was call therapists, and I got her an appointment that week. And that's when it started. So I cannot imagine having a child come to you and telling you they're having these feelings and not doing anything about it, because you don't know where it's going to go. But this entire situation really has made us that much closer, not just as mother and daughter, but I think as a family. And I'm just really grateful for the opportunities and the fact that Megan, again, she's my child, so she is an open book, and she made a Facebook post. And as much as I am also an open book, this is her story to tell. This was not my story to tell. So when she posted that Facebook post on May 1st of 2023 at the start of Mental Health Awareness Month, the first text I got was from my brother, who we are very close. And he said, oh my gosh, I just saw Megan's Facebook. Is she okay? He had no idea. It had been 8 months at that point, and he had no idea because it wasn't my story to tell. And
Yeah.
he didn't know. So family didn't even know. But just from that one simple Facebook post, she raised $500 for the suicide prevention program, which I'm very proud about. I had people that I went to high school with, that I worked with, that I knew years ago, that would Facebook message me privately or text me privately and say, I have a struggle with this, or my my family member was like this, and this and that. So it's just opened up so many doors, I think, in terms of lines of communication and opportunities for both of us to just help other people. And like she said, she just did it to talk about her feelings, and knowing that she helped just one person, let alone, a dozen, that's amazing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that is amazing. So I want to, you know, thank you for that. And this is kind of in some ways started a revolution, right? Now, in talking about that, I think that there are so many places and so many advocacy groups, and there's definitely, for us, we focus on mental health care. We focus on our ability to raise awareness, and there are so many outlets, but there are particular outlets that certain students go to, and they can become overwhelmed. But I think this is great that you directed them and you helped them and you talked them through it. And so I do want to go to Max and a little bit more testosterone here. Thank you. And
Getting
thank
emotional.
you. Yeah, for that talk about your journey. And we are going to get back to it. Max, with your journey in 2024 and my becoming aware of you, it was a little bit different. And you had a friend at the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention that suggested that you might be a perfect candidate for this award from all of the work that you did in your high school, and as part of something called Friends of Rogers, and then your journey. And what did that look like, and how does it compare potentially to what Megan did in her school with her friend group, and why did you do it? What's your why?
My why, it's always been try to make everybody feel as comfortable as possible. Try to make everybody feel included, feel loved, and feel worthy. What created this ideology for me and this motivation has always been my personal journey. All throughout middle school, I had this awful push and pull identity crisis within myself. I was such a big people pleaser. I always felt like I had to be the center of attention, and I had to be the person that made everybody else comfortable. And because of that, I tried adapting to everybody around me. So it got to the point where I started picking and pulling something that somebody liked about me, to the point where I didn't know who I was, to an extent. And it left me a hollow shell of the person I knew I was. I started feeling isolated. I started being incredibly anxious for any kind of social interaction I was going to have, because I felt that they weren't going to like me, or I wasn't going to be good enough for somebody's attention. And I'm so glad I have such an amazing support system at home. I have an amazing father who's a mental health professional, and I have the kindest mother a young boy could ever ask for. And I gained the confidence to make an organization like Friends of Rogers through the impact I was seeing to my closest friends. I've growing up, I always saw myself as the friend group therapist, as a lot of people like to call it, because in order to find myself again, I had to take a step back and look at myself introspectively, see what really makes me me, and embrace that. And through that, I've learned a lot about emotions, about empathy, and how to help other people understand themselves, as I felt I've lived a lot of life in a short amount of time. And there was this wonderful woman by the name of Carrie Book, who I met my sophomore year of high school, after I really wanted to find an outlet to be that beacon for people, be the beacon for people to feel included, and love themselves and be who they know they are. Her and Lakin Crumbly, who was a science teacher at Rogers High School, they really wanted students to help them organize campus Out of the Darkness walk. And it reminded me of a walk that I went to with my dad. I'd say 2021. We went to Fort Smith. It was Arkansas River Valley Community Walk, and the sense of community and the sense of mutual love and respect that I felt from that venue, and everybody telling their stories, and just all the love that I was feeling of everybody, really, really inspired me, and it really struck a chord. And I really wanted to reciprocate that at my high school, because at my high school I felt like nobody. It was a very cliquey high school. Everybody always excluded everybody to make themselves feel better, and I hated that. I wanted everybody to feel the feeling I felt at that Fort Smith community walk. So I approached them and I said, hey, I have a little bit of experience working with these kinds of walks. My father's a mental health professional. We've gone to these multiple times, and I'd love to be a student leader in this. And at this time, I was still struggling with social anxiety. I was still struggling with being in front of a large group of people and being myself. And through the Friends of Rogers, through the walk planning, I really blossomed. I felt at ease for once. I felt like I was where I was supposed to be. And then the next year, the organization that we had created for the walk turned into Friends of Rogers. And everybody who started it with me, Carson Shue, Carrie Book, and Lakin Crumbly, we all had the same we all had the same goal. Like, everybody feel included, advocate for mental health, and serve our community.
That's wonderful. And was it an uphill battle in a way that you had to bring down some of those barriers and some of the boundaries that people had? You know, we're talking about being, sort of secluded, and I would call bullying in some way, or pushing people back to make themselves feel better. Like, how did that journey take its course to become successful?
So I think it was definitely an uphill battle. It was a battle within myself, because I knew what I wanted to do, but I was so scared to do it. I was so scared of not having the right existing atmosphere at my high school to create it. And it took a lot of personal struggle, a lot of overexposure to social interactions in order to find my voice, and have a voice strong enough to lift everybody else's voice around me, so we could all have a voice for mental health, and we all had the courage to share not only our own stories, but then in turn uplifting more and more people.
And did you have the support? You mentioned one teacher in particular, but was the school board behind you? Was it a gradual increase of support from the teacher population, or was this really more just grassroots, and you got one person at a time?
So initially we had a large student following, and one of the teachers that started it, she's very outgoing, and she was very assertive. She's an incredibly assertive woman, and she was the one that went to the school board and said, hey, we want to put on this event. It's about mental health. It's about suicide prevention. Could we please have some support from the school board? And instantly, our amazing school board hopped on board, and they said, whatever you need, we'll make it happen. And that was such a blessing, because that was they laid out a perfect foundation for the students to then take charge and hold this event and start this organization. And little by little, we had more and more people join. Always at meetings, I'd tell somebody, bring a friend. Anybody is included. I made a strong point to not make any club fees or any entry fees. I always wanted it to be a nonprofit and be inclusive to everybody, so we could garner more and more members. So then in turn, we could do bigger events and have a larger outreach.
Right. And that is important, I think, to have that support from teachers. But let's go back to, Jorge, your support. I was going to ask you a question, which came first, chicken or the egg, but as a mental health care professional, what do you think, who are the types of people you work with, and how do you think that influenced, Max's bravery or his understanding of this struggle?
I think as far as the mental health experience for me, started when we moved here to Arkansas. In LA, I was always a mentor and a counselor for kids who were gang related or in drugs in the big city. So when we moved to Arkansas, I wanted to find similar youth centers, similar population of kids that needed the help. But the town is small, so there weren't any youth centers or anything where I could volunteer to help. So somebody mentioned a psych hospital. It's an acute psychiatric hospital here. That they have some troubled teens, whether it be behavioral issues or just a mental health issues, disorders. So I started working at the psych hospitals, and I started to understand. I could relate to the kids from a behavioral part, from just life in general. I could relate to some of the trauma as far as the way they were raised. I couldn't understand the emotional and mental health behaviors. I couldn't understand it because I never studied it. I never really came across it. So it encouraged me to go back to school and get a degree in psychology. So I was an old dog trying to learn new tricks. And I went to school 4 straight years. I got my degree in psychology. But it also opened a door for me to work in schools. So I was a school-based counselor where I felt it was the perfect situation for me because I was working with kids with mental health issues, but I was also relating with parents. I was also talking to parents. Not a lot of them were receptive. A lot of them didn't know their kids were going through some struggles as well. There's a lot of parents who I had to teach certain that it's okay to ask for help. That it's okay when you have a child that's struggling, not necessarily with the depression or anxiety aspect of it, but with the behaviorals, with the ADHDs and just defiant disorders. And I started getting involved more with community events. And that's how I got involved with the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention, because the hospital always sponsored the events. And then I just became a volunteer to other events. And that's how I started taking my sons to some of my events, because I want them to see that this is happening. I didn't want to keep them protected so much to a degree. I wanted to expose them to the stuff that their friends are going to, but like Megan, a lot. I want my son to know that there are a lot of his friends are going through the same things. They're just not opening up. And I want him to, so when he started the Friends of Rogers, I saw it as the perfect vehicle to empower some of those friends who were going through some issues, for them to join a club that was going to open a dialogue of, this is what we're helping. This is what we're trying to do. We're going to help the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention. We're going to raise awareness. We're going to participate and be an advocate for LGBTQ services, more resources for the 988. And by doing that, they got involved with Miss Jack Sharp from the AFSP, who invited them to go to the state capitol and speak on that behalf. And from the father point of view, I was in awe of what was going on. There was 70 plus. And so anytime there was an AFSP event, the Friends of Rogers would volunteer to help set up, clean up, make sure everybody fed, make sure everybody was there, and to help clean up and everything. So from a dad point of view, I loved it when my son started it because it would empowered a lot of kids. And the group has from the very affluent to the lower income, and they're all in it together. There's no separations. There's no, like you said, there's no cliques. There's just all inclusive, and it's fantastic to see. I love watching them. But I think what has made me more of a mental health advocate is because I started doing mobile assessments for the psych hospital. So when a child is going through a mental health crisis in school, I would come to the school and do an assessment of the child and really find out in what condition they're in. Because usually when they would call me, that's because they were already contemplating suicide or escalating self-harming behaviors. A lot of the times when I would do an assessment, the parents didn't even know the kids were going through this. So it was a way for me to let the parent know, listen, your child's going through this, and they're not opening up to you or whatever it might be. They're struggling in silence. So it was a great way for me to also get the parent involved. Some of them knew, obviously, and they just weren't receptive to getting them help, because you're always going to find those parents who are not accepting of that it doesn't exist, right? They're just sad. They can't be depressed. I mean, they have everything they need. That type of mentality. And others, it's like, I just didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been that journey for me. Yesterday I spoke to a company here in Arkansas that has a lot of offices across, a lot of centers across Arkansas. And they're the ones who have a fund from the state that provides mental health services to who don't have medical insurance.
No, I'm not sure. Did everybody else?
The who we contact or really have even a Medicaid, something like that. So this company offers services for those types of kids.
And so let me ask.
I'm sorry.
I think I'm having a little bit of an internet connection, but let me ask and go back to Stacey. At one point when we were talking about this, you know, and getting access to mental health counseling and medications and the challenges, you know, you were talking to me about I don't know how people do it. So I'm wondering, you know, in our little community where we came from, you know, did you feel that mental health care access was easily obtainable to you, at least to find it, to know where to go, to know how to help Megan?
So I honestly have a little bit of an advantage because I work in healthcare. I work at a pediatrician's office where I have access to all kinds of referrals for different healthcare facilities, therapists, psychiatrists, psychologists, that kind of thing. So I want to say that I do have a little bit of an advantage there. I will say when I just got on Google for our area, there were quite a few mental health facilities or programs that I found quite easily. And luckily for us, they took our insurance, and that's for everyone. And I know that. And I think you and I had that discussion about the cost of mental health and how it's not covered, which is a whole other topic. I'm sure we could cover at a different time, but we were very lucky in that regard that they did take our insurance. We have mental health benefits, and that we were able to find someone relatively close to our area.
Right. And I think, you know, from my experience in our town, I found it actually quite challenging to find availability and the right person, you know, to help with my daughter.
Right.
And just, you know, or having the right time and then dealing with the medical insurance. And we were so lucky to have that available to us. But Jorge, like you were saying, you know, in our community, to have that support and have someone like you who's kind of dealing with both sides of the fence, right? You're a parent, you're in the medical health professional, you're a medical health professional, and then Max, who's dealing with, you know, Arkansas government and lobbying at such a young age with the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention. You know, I think those are the things where we know what we have access to and how to find it, but it's not as easy for that. So you're dealing with the stigma. First of all, you said some parents couldn't even believe, some family members couldn't believe what was happening. And then in some ways, I think that, you know, if we embed ourselves in schools and get that communication going and have the Board of Education on our side and have this open dialogue, right? Megan, you know, your post and your bravery, well, it kind of made us go back and look at, are we targeting, right? We're targeting certain people in the STARR Coalition, you know, but who is the right population? And it always went back to the students. Let's, you know, let's talk about this. So Megan, in your school, you know, I had a really, you know, open relationship with the teachers, pretty easy to talk to, but it was surprising to me in some ways when it was time to talk about clinical trials, which is the job that I've served for 27 years, right? I'm an expert in the field to develop for mental health medications. The teachers never offered for me to come in and talk about it, to talk about mental health, to talk about how these medications that we use every day, devices we use every day in our everyday life, how does it come about? So, you know, that's one of the things I'm thinking. Has everybody here taken a medication today, over the counter or prescription, used a Band-Aid, a cotton ball, a gauze, any of those things? It's all regulated by the FDA. And all of those things had to undergo particular testing to be allowed to be utilized by the population, but we aren't aware of it. So Megan, in your school, did you have the support of teachers to understand the science? Did you have the understanding to you know, to be able to say or talk about mental health issues coming from teachers, coming from educators? What was your experience there?
At Westminster, no.
Yeah.
But at Salisbury last year, there was one speaker in particular, and I still think about her to this day. We would have just like random, it was like our orientation week, the first week last year. And she, I forget her name, but her words still stick with me. But she talked about mental health and like social media and mental health. And she just, you know, told basically explaining everything that we're saying. Like, you just never know. And she brought us, you know, she's like, does anyone have any questions? Like, so many people were asking questions, and like that room was full of 300 people. And, you know, I knew that I was struggling, but my friends didn't know. The 299 other people didn't know. And so I guess just like seeing those kids and her like being able to speak out about it, and, you know, her like opening the panel up to questions. And there were like 10 students, I think, that came up on stage and were just sharing their journeys about mental health with the 300 people in that room that they never met before, like don't even know who we are. And that was like, that's been my only real experience with like teachers and at school with mental health, because that I just like, that always just sticks with me. Like those 10 kids spoke about their journeys in a room of 300 people. And I wish I had the bravery to do that, honestly. But I just
Not
think
easy.
about, I just think
Not
about
easy.
that because
How long, Megan, how long was that experience? Was that a half an hour? Was it an hour? Was it a 2 hour?
it was an hour. Yeah, it was just an hour.
So think about that. It was an hour of your life. It made an impact. And
Yeah.
so what we're asking for as part of Stop the Stigma and to educate, I'm asking for an hour. an hour of class to go in and talk, or to explain more about what we put in our bodies and how it gets there, and the safety and access to everyone, right? And I know that there's such a diversity in our schools from a socioeconomic standpoint. I know maybe not necessarily culturally, but that is what you're going to be dealing with when you become a nurse. And so what I guess did this journey, was that always there to become a nurse?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the understanding now is that you didn't just go for a nursing degree. Now you're thinking about also minoring in psychology. And did
Yes. So
that have
I
an impact from working with, working with us, with the STARR Coalition, talking with, the Betty Woodman Nursing Fund and the foundation there? How did this come about?
Yeah, so my main goal always was just to be a nurse. Like I went into school, major nursing, and after I made my post, I talked, with you guys and everything. I decided to minor in psychology just because I was always fascinated with psychology in high school and just, thinking about that. And I just put like all my psychology classes, on my schedule. I took one both semesters last year, and it just still, like, the human brain is just like, not to get all nerdy here, but it's like pretty freaking cool. And like, you know, someone like with mental health, we learned about that and just how your brain just instantly changes and how the serotonin just drops. And me being a nursing major with that minor in psychology, I feel like I can go into a situation if someone is having a mental health episode, crisis. I would have that background knowledge from studying and also myself to be able to help them. And that's kind of what I've done like in the past. Like I have the knowledge of myself, and I could use, what I did on myself to help them.
Right. And I think that's one of the things that we were talking about, all of us together in different situations throughout our journeys together, is the fact that I don't, yes, the STARR Coalition is involved with mental health, right? That's our primary basis from a more of a psychology place. But every person you touch in your community can, mental health is everything for everyone. And it's just such a broad, it's just this broad sweep of every person you interact with during the day may need this encouragement and this help. And so I hear a lot of empathy there. Let's go back to Max as far as talking about, the work that you're doing and the other things that you're seeing in advocacy when you went to talk about 988 and smart mental health legislation this past spring. At the state capitol, how did you have that bravery? What did that journey look like? And what impact have you had at this point?
So with the Capitol Day, it was all an amazing opportunity that Ms. Jacqueline Sharp from the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention Arkansas chapter presented to me. We had known each other a year before when we worked together for the walk. She's always been a mentor for me, and I'm forever grateful for her. And she asked me, Max, I see the work you're doing. You're very knowledgeable on teenage and young adult mental health. I'd love for you to come to the Capitol with us and give legislators a youth point of view on mental health and how they're being impacted by the current legislation. And immediately I jumped on it. I've always been very outspoken on my political views, especially with my mental health advocacy. So I thought it was a perfect mix of both. Coming up to the Capitol, I was nervous. I was nervous because I'm speaking to senators and I'm speaking to the people that practically dictate my life living in the natural state of Arkansas. And initially I was very intimidated. But I had this weird anti-intimidation tactic that I use for pretty much any adult. I just imagine I think of the thought of them being teenagers. because they were all teenagers at one point. Regardless if it's in a different decade, we all thought the same at one point. And it's just a matter of maturing, an increase of emotional intelligence and experience. And for my age, I think I'm very emotionally intelligent. So I felt like we could have that middle ground in terms of maturity and the topics that we were talking about. So I brought some of my closest friends and some people that I knew would be great talking about topics like this, especially to such people in power. So we got there. I had done research for a month straight prior about 988 call centers, how Arkansas is the worst state when it comes to picking up the calls and deferring calls to other call stations outside of Arkansas, where they're not very knowledgeable on the resources that the person in crisis might have. And I hated the thought of somebody's mental health and even life being chalked up to luck or chance, or even just the negligence of the state government. So I came in with the knowledge that I had shared with all the people that I brought to the Capitol with me, and I told them, hey, I don't care how intimidated you are, because I'm equally as nervous and anxious as you guys are. We have to think of the bigger picture being people struggling with suicidal ideations and lack of mental health resources, right? It was never an option for me or other people to back out. We never had the option to back out because we all understood the magnitude of the reason why we were there. So I spoke to a few senators, a few legislators, and I said, I'm Max Delgado. I'm from Rogers High School in Northwest Arkansas, and I'd like to share with you some of the things that I'm seeing at my high school and some of the people I've lost because of it. And with that, the thing that I love about mental health and with suicide prevention is that everybody struggles with it. I designed a t-shirt design saying that regardless of your race, ethnicity, gender, or religion or political standpoint, we're all suffering. We're all equally suffering from our own struggles of mental health. And these senators that I was so intimidated by would just share their stories on if they struggled themselves with mental health, or they knew somebody who somebody close to them that had passed away. So instantly we had that bridge broken. We had a middle ground, because I never believed that mental health was a political view. I never believed it was left or right. And seeing that everybody struggled with it and had an experience with it just took all the nerves and anxiety away from me. Because for a lot of the people with me, they said, what if they don't listen? What if they don't understand? What if they don't accept what we're trying to tell them? They're gonna listen. It affects all of us. And having that understanding just makes you feel so much better. And having such meaningful conversations with somebody, it changes the way they look at their work, their lives, their relationships. It really alters how they see the life around them. And we went for a second time. We talked about LGBTQ protection. That's always been so important to me, because the LGBTQ community has always been such a vulnerable demographic, especially when it comes to mental health, because they're so marginalized. They're always under a microscope. They're always degraded. They're always just treated in awful ways, especially in the state of Arkansas, being in the South. And I also hated the thought of that. So we went, talked about it, and it was great. I really hope I made an impact on all the people I spoke to, and especially with all the students that I brought. And I'm very proud of all the work that everybody's done for AFSP and Arkansas State Capitol Day.
That sounds wonderful. And let me move over to your dad. Jorge, you talked about the passion that Max has, which is evident, but also that impact on his younger brother. Can you talk about that?
Well, is JD is 16. He's also going through he loves his big brother. It's his role model. So he was gonna, they're inseparable to a degree. So when I was taking him to the events, I noticed, obviously Max was a little older, is a year and a half older, 2 years or so. I know he was more passionate, but Max was always involved. JD was always involved as well. Now that Max has left the high school, obviously JD is involved in the Friends of Rogers. They're also organizing the fact that they're starting at other high schools as well, similar groups in other high schools. So Max is also part of that to make sure that the other high schools share the same passion to a degree. And JD is very involved in it as well. JD, as far as a profession, he doesn't really want to do the psychiatric psychology part, like my son Max and my daughter Lola. She too is a junior at the U of A, and she also wants to be a psychiatrist, but she wants to do more in your end, more of the clinical research part, not necessarily the therapeutic part, but more of the research aspect of therapy, of psychiatry. I'm sorry, but JD is very smart as well, very very empathetic, very so he understands what's going on. He understands the power that the group has, the Friends of Rogers. So he's still going to be part of it. He just wants to. He's more medical school driven. He wants to be an anesthesiologist.
Well, that's great. We need those. And I think, just from the perspective of, right, he's seen what can happen. He has sort of, this person to look up to and have mentored him to understand how to engage with other people, even if he has different interests. And I think that's fantastic. And Megan, you have a younger sister, and, I'm seeing things, and I don't know if Megan, you want to address this, or Stacey, you want to address this, but with the field hockey and the sports, and some of the things that Emily's doing. Can you talk about that and how maybe you've influenced her? Or she's seeing some of this in action and what's happened with you. How is that impacting her and her mentality, and how sports having an impact on the two of you for better mental health, etc.?
Me too.
Yeah, you can talk.
So Emily is very athletic. She's a tri-sport athlete, plays
Not
soccer.
me.
Plays soccer, she runs indoor track, and she plays lacrosse. And I think learning from Megan, she has seen the impact that mental health can make on any student at any age. And then finishing her first year of high school last year, she learned about a program or called Morgan's Message, which it was started by the parents of a young woman who had an excellent college lacrosse career, wound up getting hurt, could not play, tore her ACL, I believe, could not play. And she felt her whole identity was wrapped up in sports, and that all she was her accolades in the sport that she loved, that she played for years. And when she realized that she was no longer able to play to her capability, she told her friends she was okay and that it was fine. And it turned out that it was not okay. And unfortunately, she lost her life to her battle. And now with every season for Emily's lacrosse and soccer, they do a special game dedicated to Morgan's Message. Morgan's Message emblem is a butterfly, and the body of the butterfly is a semicolon, which, as we all know, means that your story is not over yet. Emily keeps a sticker of a butterfly on her lacrosse stick so that she is a reminder to herself when she's down or having a bad game or they lost or it was just not going her, things were not going her way. That's a reminder to herself that she is more than her sport. She is a person. She's allowed to have a bad game. Her team's allowed to have a bad day. But there's so much more to life than just a win or a loss in the sport that she loves.
And I think that's important because, you know, kids your age are so driven by, you know, getting the good grades, being part of every potential sport and every club, and being the shining star to be able to achieve getting to university, right? And then once you walk through the door of university, congratulations, you got here. But guess what? Now you have to work even harder because you are a student of our university and we need you to shine. And I feel like that stress is just constantly there, and it just takes a toll mentally. And it, I think as parents, for me, it took a toll mentally because it was just like, slow down. Who cares? You know, it
Right.
doesn't matter. Just, you know, it doesn't matter. But then I walk in, you know, I walk into my daughter's university and the school, and in fact, that is what they are being told 24/7. And there's really nowhere to get away from it. So I think having, you know, Morgan's message, having these discussions amongst yourself and, you know, Megan and Max, with the pressures that you've had to deal with and getting into university and keeping your grades up and the amazing things that you've done, do you feel obligated to keep that pace, you know, or have you found some balance, you know, or how have you learned a balance? Are you learning a balance? Do you need help with that? Anybody can answer. It's a free for all.
Definitely last year, not really last year, last semester was rough for me. I was just taking hard classes, and that took a toll on my mental health last semester. And it was just very hard to kind of find the balance between like studying all the time and being able to like take a 20-minute break, or just like keep going, keep grinding it out, pull an all-nighter. It was definitely very hard for me, but I think finding the balance is hard. I'm not gonna lie. It was very hard for me, very stressful, but yeah, I just learned that like take a break, take a 20-minute break. That's what I would do. Go sit outside, go listen to music, and then come back. Cramming it all into, 4 hours of studying, you're not going to learn anything. You're not going to be able to get anything done. So finding the balance at first was hard, but I just kept taking breaks, and that helped me a lot.
And
Yeah.
Matt, what's your plan and what's your strategy?
I really relate to Megan in terms of stress and taking really hard classes. For 2 years, my last 2 years of high school, my junior and senior year, I of course took a lot of college classes at my local community college. My junior year of high school, I took 8 classes both semester. I had 5 at my community college and 3 at my high school. And the ones I took at high school were band, AP statistics, and some other credits that I had to get out the way. And marching band was, of course, a huge time commitment. And along with all my other extracurriculars that I wanted to do, really took a lot out of me. And senior year was definitely my hardest because I had to deal with college admissions. I had to deal with all the stress around graduation, all the emotional toll of your best friends leaving. And along with that, I took 9 classes each semester. I took 6 at NWAC, which is the local community college, and then another 3 at Rogers High School. And I felt everything around me warp because I was so stressed out with trying to be the example person that I wanted everybody to look up to. But I knew that deep down I didn't have everything figured out, and I had to understand myself, and like Megan said, take a break, take a step back, understand that it's not the end of the world if you don't submit an assignment on time. And I was there were some nights where I'd be doing an assignment and I'd failed catastrophically because I didn't have enough time to really put my all into it, and just feeling almost like a failure, um, almost like I didn't try hard enough, or almost that uh, I wasn't giving the results of what I knew I could do. And my strategy has always been just knowing who you are, feeling confident on the person you are. Oh, sorry about that. And knowing that you're giving it your absolute all, and that regardless of anything, uh, forgetting the feeling of disappointing somebody, because at least you're making yourself proud. Um, and I'm planning on taking that mentality all throughout college and grad school and any other further education.
And Jorge and Stacey, and I'll have Jorge maybe start, is like, how as parents are you helping balance this life change, right, into young adulthood, high school, going into university, but you're still young in university, right? Like, trying to teach them mental health is the focus, and no one is going to die if this assignment doesn't get turned in, or if in this particular case you only gave 80 instead of 100%. Sometimes it's okay. So Jorge, do you want to talk about how you're helping support this transition?
Yes, in the beginning it was difficult for me and Max, because he wouldn't tell me when he was struggling. But I knew he had a full plate with high school and college and the Friends of Rogers, and he's also in the marching band. So there were Friday night games and competitions. So there were a lot of times where he was taken up on competitions for marching band and all that, and games. And I go, for a lot of classes, your plate is too full. But you're also trying to juggle relationships, and that was also tough, right? Because obviously it takes a toll on trying to have a relationship with somebody. So he finally came to me one night and he said he was struggling, and we cried together. And I go, well, a C is still passing. You know what I mean? You're still going to get a degree with the C. So just give it your best. Don't worry. Don't fret so much on getting an A or a B, or just, he got to the point where he had to come to that realization that he's just going to have to step back, and 80% is good, because it was just too much in his first year. Second year, like he mentioned, it was more difficult, but I was constantly on him, son, you're doing too much still, and all this stuff. Now, once he finished his senior year, I exhaled a little bit, because now that he's at the university, then he just has those classes. He doesn't have the marching band schedule. He doesn't have all the meetings and all the stuff with Friends of Rogers as much. So instead of having those 9 classes a semester, he's going to have less at the university, and he has more time in between classes, more time. So now he's just going to have to work on time management, and we'll figure out how to do that, because eventually he also wants to look for a job. So he's going to have to juggle getting a job. But also I told him, listen, this is your first week of school. Just figure out your schedule, figure out your time when you can study, when you cannot. And then you figure out how you can get a job in between the space in the middle, because ultimately you still need to have time for friends. You just can't be old school and work. School is also for friends and stuff. So I want to make sure I'm gonna, as much as I can, I'm gonna advise him and try to pull him back when I feel he's doing too much. That's the only thing I can do. Just check on him every day, see how he's doing, and then just be there for him when he needs the help.
And Stacey, how are you managing this? I'm assuming it's an issue with you guys too, only because as a parent I'm dealing with the same thing. But how are you dealing with that balance and keeping her strong mentally?
Very, very similar to what Jorge just said, just reminding them that it is okay to take a break. It is okay to fail an exam, fail a test, not do your best. Your mental health is more important than, getting 100% on something. If one day you only get a 70% or lower, that's okay too. Take a break, go outside, go for a walk, get a snack, take a nap, go out with your friends. But yes, it's so important to balance all of it. And it is it's a steep learning curve for them. It's the first time they've been out on their own. They don't have anybody to remind them to study or to drink water or, things like that. So it really is just a balancing act and the reminding every day of, when I get that text, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fail this test. And it's like, you know what? You're not going to fail it. And if you do, that's okay.
Yeah.
Take a break.
And
yeah, exactly what Jorge said. It's just very important for them to remember that, it's not the end of the world if you fail something.
Right. And I pulled my college transcripts and put it on my daughter's desk when she was having the biggest epic meltdown in high school. And I said, look at this. I
Right.
still made it. I was a horrible student. And I think I came from a family where I didn't have that strong connection to family, which is one of the big things I think is missing in the communities. And Jorge and Stacey, you're probably seeing this more, a lot of kids, and Max and Megan, seeing that a lot of people don't have that familial support that you have, and that you're bringing that support with you. And, whether you're going to be a nurse or a psychologist or just a human in your community, just lending an ear sometimes, or reminding your friend, hey, why don't you drink some water? It's 104 degrees outside. You need that. But I think too, I know that Megan and Stacey are big fans of Taylor Swift and music. And I think that's very healthy, right? To have music as part of the process. There was a duo between Papa Roach and Carrie Underwood called Leave the Light On. And it, is part of the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention. All of the proceeds from that song went to the foundation, and the support of 988. So I do think that, Max, the work that you're doing, the work that we're all doing is, helping to gain momentum to provide that support elsewhere. But, are there, does music, Megan, does it impact your mental health? Does it help you provide that, maybe some relief, positivity, understanding?
Yeah. So honestly, when I'm having a bad day, I put on just like my favorite hype song, my hype girl playlist, and I go for a run or I go for a walk, and I just, or I go to the gym. The gym is like always my outlet to just de-stress. I go every day. It's just my time for an hour and a half to, get stuff done and just not have to worry about anything else. But yeah, music is just I've always loved listening to music. Like you said, I'm a big Taylor Swift girl. But just listening to music has always just been there for me, throughout everything. Just having a bad day, happy song. If I want to cry, put on a sad song. Like, it's just always just been there for me.
That's awesome. Max, do you have anything in particular that you listen to that helps you get through your day, or is it exercise for you? Is it what is your technique?
Definitely. I also exercise. I have a home gym in my garage. I absolutely love it. That's definitely an outlet for a lot of negative emotions. I try being a very positive and happy person 24/7, but there are still a lot of situations where I am very upset, and the gym and exercise has always been such a healthy outlet for that. But times when I'm down or just need to decompress after a long day, I love throwing on some of those old Motown hits, a lot of R&B, a lot of soul. I love it. And a lot of new artists, sometimes a little niche. Sometimes I like to get those ground indie artists in there. And I just love picking music that I relate to, especially in the situation I'm in, whether that be Phoebe Bridgers or um, Childish Gambino or any artists like that. I always try picking songs that best fit what mood I'm trying to get at or empathize with.
Are you a Swiftie as well?
I like a little Tay Tay. I like some of her songs. Dear John has got to be my favorite song from her. But I love all of her projects, mostly the acoustics. But yeah, I think she's incredibly talented. And yeah.
I think that's amazing. I want to go back to something. I know we've got a few minutes left, but I do want to respect everyone's time and approach a couple of more topics. I know that social media can cause a lot of negativity, and you can just get drawn in and sucked in, and with the algorithms, it can compound itself. Megan, Max, Jorge, Stacey, any thoughts on social media? Are there maybe, and limiting the time, things to avoid, any social media influencers that you follow that are, proponents of mental health advocacy? Any thoughts from the four of you?
I've always had such a pros and cons thing with social media. I've always thought it's always been just such a great outlet for people to express their creativity, the thoughts that they have on the world. And I think it's great for people to have a sense of community outside of their school or any other organizations or gatherings that are in real life. And maybe you're in the South and there isn't a whole lot of fans of a particular video game, and you want to join an online community where you feel a part of something that isn't very popular where you're from. But there's always such a negative side to it. One bad post, one bad message, one mistake could really warp the gravity of your life and the relationships around you. And in this day and age, social media is everything. Most of our social interactions are through a screen. And if you feel like that relationship or status online has been violated, you start shutting down. And it's such a negative state to be in. And I ultimately believe it's just the way you use it, the way you express yourself, the way you allow other people to express themselves, and what morals and ethics you bring to social media. It could be the best thing that could happen for you and your community, or it can be a detriment.
Well said.
Megan, what are your thoughts?
I agree with Max. It's definitely, social media is for me great, Instagram, seeing all my friends, what they're doing, watching funny videos on TikTok, but there's just such like a negative side to it too. Like I could just vividly remember being in middle school, early high school, posting something on Instagram and constantly watching how many likes I get. And if I don't get enough number or the number that I wanted to get, I was like, oh my God, they hate me.
You would delete it.
Like they think I'm so ugly. Like, oh my gosh,
You would delete the post because it didn't get enough
yeah,
traction.
because like that's just like the mentality that we all had. And also for me, like being a girl, comparing yourself to other girls and what they look like, like, oh, my body doesn't look like this, like I'm not good enough, I want to look like this girl. So for me, yes, social media is great, but yeah, there's just so many negatives to it. And I've just learned to I just unfollow the people that if I just, I'm like, okay, I can't do this anymore. Like unfollow. Yeah.
Well, I know with what, what we're up against, there was a report from the CDC that teen girls are reporting less sadness, but they're reporting much more bullying, and that's a statistic. And I feel, mental health is impacted significantly by the social media frenzy, the culture. It's not going anywhere. But I think there needs to be an awareness with your younger siblings and the people that you're with, to try and help pull people out of that. And, right, Max, keep everything positive. You can't be positive all the time. It's actually mentally taxing and draining, and it wears you down. It's like I have to be on during conferences all the time and smiling. And at the end of those conferences, there's a period of sadness because it's just like, psh, all that joy and happiness, it just goes into like back to the mundane side of things. So, I think, from that perspective, it is something to keep in the back of your mind, as it relates to discussions, in the community and the advocacy that we're going to be doing, throughout our life.
Mm.
Jorge, did you want to say something?
The more of the music, how therapeutic it is. That's usually what I rely on. Window therapy. I drive around a lot. When I need a moment. Unlike the young Megan and Max who like to do the gym, I'm way too old to do the gym because then it'll hurt for 3-4 days after.
Or 8?
So
yeah.
so my stress now when I need a moment or I need a good cry, because every now and then I get a little melancholic from losing a brother or whatever it may be. I just get in my car and I just put some of my favorite music and I do a good cry and then I come home.
Yeah.
Or it just having a bad day at work. Or when you interview a lot of kids when they're struggling, you wanna not bring it home. So
Yeah.
just music. I listen to old music. I listen to gangster music, like Wilson Phillips and Nora Jones and Jewel, that kind of gangster. Otherwise, it's just, I'm sorry, that Wilson Phillips, that's scary music.
So,
but,
do you, so as
it's just
reported,
also my kids. I live through them.
yeah, I do as well. And I learn all sorts of acronyms and nomenclature and things that scare me. So I don't know if you guys are royal watchers, but there was an interview with Harry, Prince of Wales, recently, and one of the things he said is everyone needs to be a first responder, right? And so, do all of you feel that way, or how do you prepare yourself for that? Is that something that is it something that's inherent? Is it something that needs to be taught? How can maybe Sara bring that into her Minds Ahead program as we try to become superheroes for others? Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
I do. I think it's because even when I have those bad days and I think that's the beauty of social media too, that you can just put just a simple meme of just somebody saying, "Oh, what a day," type of thing, right? Or just expressing something where you're not in a good place. Whenever I see that a friend of mine posting something that he just had a day, or he's going through some struggles, and that's how people are asking for help now. Sometimes just through Facebook or Instagram, posting a meme of somebody just being exhausted, right? That's where I would say, hey man, I'm in the neighborhood. You want to go get some chips and salsa? You want to get a beer, that type of thing, because they're going through some stuff, and that's how they're asking for help to a degree, or at least letting you know they're going through some things, and especially if they're friends or even colleagues from work, you wanna ask if everything is okay. They may not tell you, but just the fact that you came and asked them meant something to them, and then next time they'll let you know. But even when you see somebody who's not in there, that they're not being their normal selves, because your friends, when they're having bad days, and they're not always going to tell you. It's always good to say, hey, you're doing all right, or even have a hug, or whatever it may be. I think that's important from our point, from our relationship wise, that just asking somebody. I mean, if they tell you, great. If they don't, then, but at least they know that you care enough to ask them, see how they're doing.
Yeah.
I wanna bounce off of that. My dad, growing up, he always taught me to nurture the relationships that we have. And I love the term first responder because for a lot of my youth, I felt like I was the first responder when somebody was having trouble or anything like that. And I think it's so important to remember the term prevention. We're always here to prevent suicide. We're here to prevent any extreme incidents to happen. And if somebody's in dire need of something, or just struggling, it's all about, hey man, I'm here for you. You don't have to tell me anything you don't want to tell me, but I'm here. Give me a holler if you need me, right? Because we're trying to start from the bottom. We're playing long ball. It's a long-term thing. Healing and mental health advocacy and self-care is all a long-term thing. We can't instantly feel better in a week for something that has such a strong magnitude on our lives. And it's just a matter of being the person that makes people feel better about themselves. So we won't have to be the person that calls the authorities in case something happens, because we forgot the people that we care for.
Thanks for that. Megan, Stacey, do you have anything to add to that?
I do. Just last year, being in college, my first year, I lived in a dorm with 10 other girls. We were all super close and we all had something going on. I can tell you, each and every one of us was on some sort of anxiety medication, depression medication. And at first I was, ashamed to admit that, but I'm not anymore. And I told them, I was like, it's okay to go up on your dose if that's what you need. I'm going to tell you right now, I recently just went up on my dose because my anxiety got really bad. And we just, every Friday night, we would sit in one of our rooms and just talk about our week and how, if something really good happened or if it was a really bad week. And not even just like on Friday nights, it would be anytime. If I saw one of them struggling, not coming out of their room all day, I would be like, hey, let's go outside. Let's go sit outside. Like, we need some sun. Let's go just put a blanket down and lay out. Or let's go get some Chick-fil-A. Let's go get, a bagel from Starbucks. Let's just go do something. And they did the same for me. There were plenty of times where I was going through relationship issues last year or just being very stressed out about school, and they did the same for me. And I owe it all, like, I seriously do. I owe it all to them and my family for, getting me through the last year of school, because like, if it wasn't for them, I literally would just not be here. So
Yeah, that's these techniques. I think that's good. You guys have action plans. You're working on techniques. You're being first responders. You're accepting help. And I think all of that, right? It's a well-balanced, right? Maybe just in time and well-balanced. And I think that's one of the things that, Megan, you'll bring to your nursing career. Max, I'm not sure where you're going to take psychology, but where you take that, right? Whether it's speaking at the Capitol or whether it's speaking to your classmates, I think this is all important to have an action plan and to recognize either I'm in trouble or someone else is in trouble. And it's good. It's good to be around people and get rid of the social media for a while. And sometimes it's good to be alone and listen to music. And I think all of this is very healthy. Let me ask you though, maybe to all of you, because we're here to talk about, clinical trials and mental health and stopping the stigma. Have any of you participated in clinical trials or have ever had it offered to you by a physician that, you know, you either went to for mental health or went to for an ingrown toenail? I don't know. Have any of you been offered that in your tenure?
No.
Mm-mm.
No, Max?
No.
Jorge, you're on mute. Let me see if we can take you off mute. Oh, there
Okay,
you
I got
go.
it.
Up there.
Yeah, there's a couple of research facilities here. One is called Woodland Research Clinical Trials. They specialize in bipolar, Alzheimer's, mostly for adults, nothing
Yep.
for adolescents. There's also Pillar Clinical, which I have friends who run the program, and I work with them every now and then because they need the help in transportation of anything. So I've seen, because I've done the collection of urine, of blood, of spit, during those drug trials, because some of them take 3 months to do. They're inpatient, so they're monitored and all that stuff. So I know how the trials work, the program works, and the types of medications. I just don't see a lot of them for kids, though. That's the only thing I don't see.
Right.
It's kind of like the detox programs here. Most of the detox programs are for adults. There's nothing for kids because there's never been any drug that's been used on trials for kids.
Right.
For detox, whether it be painkillers or meth or whatever it may be. So that's the only thing here.
That's the one thing I would encourage, you know, as well as, you know, you're talking, Megan, with your friends that are taking medications. One of the things to know that sometimes the medications that you're taking don't work any longer. There's a resistance to them, and to talk with their doctors and make sure that they're included in the conversation and to write down anything, you know, if a trend that you're seeing. So that, you know, that's just advice from my perspective. I could talk with you guys for hours and I want to, but I know that we're heading up on time here. And I just, again, I think it's just been inspiring and enlightening. And I think our listeners are really going to enjoy hearing about the topics we had today. I may send some follow-up questions for you guys just to answer and see your perspective on it. But I know that you're like heading back to college and are in college right now. So I think that's, you know, on your own time, and we can do that later. I will probably also ask for your playlists. If anybody wants to share that, maybe we can share that with our listeners. Sara, did you want to say anything before we make our closing statements?
The only really comments that I have is, this was just a really great conversation. I have enjoyed kind of sitting back and listening to everything. I think that you all have a bright future ahead of you in college. I know, you know, I went through 4 years of undergraduate and then 1 year of grad school. It can be stressful, and kind of over time you'll learn how to juggle, you know, your mental health along with, you know, studying, friendships. I think college is really a time where you learn and grow. So take that opportunity to make connections. You'll find your best friends in college. I think that you'll really thrive. Also, I just wanted to say, pointing out that going off of the conversation we were having about, you know, you don't have to be perfect all the time. And I think that is important. Going into college and school to remind yourself of, especially when you're getting graded on things that are important to you, that you know, you want your word to get out there. You want to be heard, that you don't have to be perfect all the time. And some things you're not going to be the best at, other things you will be good at. So I think that's important to remember. I would love to continue talking and continuing the conversation to stop the stigma, and supporting all of you in your journey of mental health advocacy. And I hope we can, you know, talk soon. I'll definitely be sending follow-up emails as well, Leslie, with additional questions, and hopefully we can kind of collaborate more and in your future endeavors with, you know, talking with other students at your university and making sure that, you know, your community is healthy. And I think that's just really great of all of you.
Thanks, Sarah. So
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, you know, on our panel today and my co-host. I really do want Megan and Max to have a great year at university, and that your parents get to see you often and go to concerts and, you know, listen to music and go to the gym and be together as a family. But keep up your studies and work that inspires you and others. And to our listeners, we really would like everyone to consider how they can, you know, become Stop the Stigma Champions in your own communities. As we've heard in our podcast today, students and parents can make a considerable difference with one single act. And we do hope that this podcast is just the first of many to help talk about mental health and wellness in your circles. So stay well until next time on Let's Talk About It. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Leslie.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Have a great week.
You too.